As Da said this morning, a fairly small group, but very focused group. I'm sure you have an interest in NEO, so thank you again. This is the NEO experience. We want to talk to you about how to build dApps and smart contracts, really significantly simplify the developer experience. I'm John Davidaus, Long Face, my co-presenter. I spent about 2 decades at Microsoft working on platforms. I led the architecture work for the first version of the .NET platform, and now focusing my energy on the NEO blockchain platform to make it developer ready. Long Fei, maybe quick intro.
Hey everyone, so my name is Long Fei and I'm a blockchain engineer working with NEO. So currently I'm leading a team to provide the best experience for the dApp development. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to provide as much as support we can for the project who wants to build dApp or anything on NEO. And then after John, I'm going to talk about how and what kind of tools that we provide. So for the developers to get easier to start on NEO. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. So just a quick maybe question. How many folks know us from when we were ant shares? Anybody here know NEO when we were ant shares? Maybe not. Okay. That's good to know. How many folks maybe are more developer oriented, looking to build apps? That's a very good number. Well, thank you. So certainly this will be a good session for you. By the way, a few months ago, we launched NEO here in the US in Seattle. I lead up the Seattle Dev Center. So folks in the US, if you want to reach me, please certainly feel free. So there are 3 things we want to focus on today. Just give you a quick intro. Sounds like many of you are fairly new to the NEO platform. So we'll give you a snapshot of the history of NEO, and then dive deep into the dev tools. And we'll give you a couple of hands-on demos in terms of how to build smart contracts and the whole life cycle as well. Not just build, but also deploy, test, and then obviously the entire end-to-end life cycle. So some quick history. This goes back over 5 years. You might know or not know that NEO is over 5 years old. And this is back in Shanghai. You can see Da Hongfei there. You can see Eric, the co-founder. And you probably also see Vitalik in there. So this was back in the very early days, 5+ years ago, when there was a meetup in Shanghai. And obviously, all these folks were in the same room at the same time, so some history. And this is the early days when NEO was first launched back in 2014. See Da Hongfei and Eric. Eric is the CTO, co-founder with Da Hongfei. And certainly, we've come a long way in the last 5 years, thanks to you, thanks to the many other developers, and certainly friends of NEO. I want to pause in this for just maybe a minute. There are some things that NEO was a pioneer early in the days in terms of the blockchain movement, if you will. For example, we were among the first platforms to bet on Byzantine fault tolerance. So NEO uses DBFT, essentially a delegated Byzantine fault tolerance. So if you are a NEO token holder, you actually have a very significant role to play in the delegates in helping drive the governance of the NEO platform. So very unique back many, many years ago. Secondly, early on, we were very quite different in that we had 2 different abstractions for the NEO token and then gas. As many folks might know, early on, there was some conflation of the 2, especially in the early Ethereum days. But NEO's founding principles were very clear that we have 2 different abstractions to maintain the consistency. And also, very early on, we realized that for a blockchain platform to be successful, you had to have developers building dApps and smart contracts. We also realized that there is no one-size-fits-all. There is no one language, one framework, one tooling, one library. And so very early on, we made the bet that NEO would address and embrace multiple languages, multiple libraries, multiple tool sets, and certainly multiple developers as well. I will not dive into this slide. Just give you a quick view in terms of the last 4.5, 5 years. At your leisure, if you have time and interest, certainly you can take a look at it, but it goes well back into the early days in terms of the first launch, and certainly the history of the main net, and along the way, how far we have come, up until the 3.0 announcement. NEO is a global community. For folks who might not be familiar with how we are organized, the core development team is globally decentralized. We have developers working on the core platform in Asia, obviously, Latin America, Europe, so certainly very much across the world. We also have our developer communities across the world as well, And as you can see in this slide, spanning all the continents. So very much truly living the decentralized principle in terms of both the core development as well as the developer groups and across the world. I want to pause here for just maybe a minute or so. I'm a platform guy. I spent my entire career building platforms, certainly at Microsoft and now at NEO. If you look at the history of computing, you go back 30, 40, 50 years, there is this pendulum of computing. Now you could say back in the days of the early mainframes, back in the 50s, 60s, it was very much centralized computing platforms. And then sometime in the 80s, there was a shift away from central to more of the PC and the client server. In the last 12 years, we've seen the pendulum once again back towards the centralized cloud model. And so I certainly believe very much that history repeats itself. If you believe in the patterns of computing, there is very much a shift happening once again away from the centralized cloud platforms into decentralized app platforms. And so very much a big believer in this core principle and the recurring pattern. I'll skip this one here. So the core vision for NEO is to realize the smart economy. As Da Hongfei says, we have built the stack to make the smart economy real. So what does it mean? A few things in terms of being digital, in terms of tokenization, which we're all very familiar. Being able to program, being able to drive the interoperable tokenization is a critical feature for us. The second pillar, in terms of decentralization, obviously, again, trust-free, transparent, and very inclusive in terms of how we build the platform and also how we run and govern the platform. And lastly, in terms of sharing, to enable seamless, friction-free sharing of assets across in terms of the smart economy. I want to spend just a couple of minutes in terms of what makes NEO different or what makes NEO unique. We could talk for a long time about what makes NEO unique, but certainly given the time, I'll call a couple of things out for your context. The first thing is this notion of finality. We're all familiar with POW, POS, and DPoS, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So what you might like to know is that we are somewhat unique across the platforms in that we enable absolute true finality. So for example, with POW, there is a notion of probabilistic finality, meaning there is always the probability up to some point that you can fork. So likewise with POS as well. There is the notion of economic finality. However, with sufficient economic assets, there is still the possibility of being able to drive the forking. Now, going back to Da Hongfei's vision, the smart economy, we realized that to build a platform for the smart economy, we had to enable true finality. Otherwise, in some sense, it's not quite realistic, right? It might work for other scenarios, but to realize true tokenization of real-world assets, you need true finality. The second is developers and development of dApps and smart contracts. So very early on, we came to the realization that the developer world is a polyglot world. The same way we come from different countries, different continents, we speak multiple languages. Developers, obviously, some folks like Python, some like Kotlin, some like Go, some like C#. And for us to say, thou shalt use this language or this framework for us was not right. And so we made a very clear bet early on, very early on, and one of the pioneering platforms in enabling and betting a polyglot environment for blockchain dApps. And lastly, just maybe a few seconds on this slide. We announced 3.0 a few months ago at the DevCon in Seattle. I want to just highlight a few things for you. Again, we could talk for a long time about the vision of 3.0 and certainly why we are doing what we are doing, but at the core, in terms of optimization, we are investing significantly on the core architecture as well as the NEO VM. For example, being able to enable native contracts is a key feature in 3.0. Also being able to optimize the P2P protocols. In terms of the scalability, NeoFS and NeoID, we believe are going to be critical building blocks to enable the realization of the smart economy vision. On the economic side, we have made significant pricing changes to make it easier and certainly economically more feasible to build dApps and to, again, translate the smart economy into action. And last but not the least, in terms of innovation, like we said, to power developers to build more and more dApps on the NEO stack, we have made significant effort to raise the bar, to make it really brain-dead simple, drop-dead simple, to be able to build these smart contracts and dApps. And with that, I'm going to give it to Long Fei to walk into more detail on the stack and the development. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, thank you very much for John for the introduction about NEO. So me as a developer, I'm going to more focus on how to develop the app on NEO. And then what's the process, what kind of tools that NEO provide to simplify the whole process of creating the apps or smart contract on NEO. So, first, we look at this picture. It's a simple diagram showing that what's the relationship between a dApp and then the NEO platform, and what kind of tools that we want to provide to simplify the process of creating dApp. So at the bottom, the light blue part is the NEO blockchain. So obviously, we support smart contract as well, and we want dApp to deploy the smart contract on NEO. And then we provide an interface that outside of the NEO can actually communicate with the blockchain by the interfaces. And there are two ways that we can communicate with NEO, communicate with NEO from the dApp. The first way is the dApp will handle all the function of as a wallet, and then the function of invoking a transaction through the wallet extension. It's similar as the MetaMask on Ethereum. So we have a dAPI standard, which is the API standard provided for the dApp to communicate with the wallet extension. And in this way, the dApp only needs to take care of its logic, its business logic, and handle over the responsibilities to take care of the user's private key, signing the transaction, broadcast the transaction to the wallet extension. The second way is on the left side, is the dApp number 2. So in this way, that NEO provides NEO SDK that the dApp can take it and integrate it into its application. In this way, the dApp will be able to create its own wallet, but it has to manage the wallet, make sure that the user's private key and public are safe and saved somewhere. But this is the more flexible way for the dApp to communicate with NEO. And we will go through the detail and then each part what NEO provides. So in order to provide the best experience, NEO provides all kinds of tools to support the whole process of creating the app or application. So for any develop experience that we want to have of environment, a local environment, we can support the development and testing our tools. For NEO, the first is the private chain. I mean the private net, the local chain that support this process of creating something on NEO. There are two ways that we provide. One is NEO Local. NEO Local is a simple way to start a NEO private net. In Docker, with one command, we'll bring up the consensus nodes for you, and then we bring up the blockchain explorer for you. The second is the black one is NEO Client. It's more flexible that you can create the NEO network by setting up all the nodes, all the consensus nodes, all the nodes that can communicate with consensus nodes. Once you have this private net set up, we have the blockchain explorer to support user and the developers to actually go and look into all the data that comes from blockchain. We have multiple blockchain explorers to support the development process. And then it's one of the most important features of blockchain, the smart contract. As John just mentioned earlier, that because from the very beginning, NEO's vision is to support multiple languages for the smart contract. So we support C#, Java, Python, and Go. Those are the most well-supported languages in NEO. The reason that we can support multiple languages is we have this very lightweight VM. We call it NEO VM. It's a little bit similar as Wasm. The similar part is we provide a compiler to compile smart contract written in different language into the code that could be run with NEO VM, which is basically the same concept as Wasm, because Wasm is we use compiler to compile different language into Wasm code that can be run with like very native speed of contract. So and then we have all these tools Neo compiler, NEO1, NEO-READ, they are like online one-stop solution for the user to go to write a smart contract and then compile, deploy, or test it with the private net you set up from the first step. And then for the communication, for the integration between dApp and then Neo, the first way is, I mentioned earlier, is Neo SDK. Considering different language requirements, we also provide SDK with multiple language, JavaScript, Java, and C#. And corresponding, they are Neo Locks and Neo W3J and Neon.js. With these three, Neo SDK provide all the functionality you will need to communicate with Neo blockchain, including the wallet functions, the smart contract functions, or the basic query function for the blockchain data. And then another easier way to communicate, to talk with Neo is through this wallet extension. We have 3 wallet extensions available now. The first one is Neo Line, and then Tmall wallet, and then O3 wallet. So those are the tools that we provide to support the whole development experience on Neo. And based on developers' experience or preference, they can choose any language they are more comfortable with to develop a smart contract and also integrate with Neo SDK. So that was the whole picture of developing on Neo and all the tools that we provide with support. And now we're going to go to a little bit more hands-on experience on building on Neo and using some of tools on Neo to build smart contract to create a wallet. First step, we're setting up a private network to support this whole process. And then we will show you how to use a Neo client to interact with Neo blockchain. And then eventually implement some smart contract with a specific language. The last step is using Neon SDK or the wallet extension to interact with Neo blockchain. So this will cover all the steps that you will need to create a dApp or any application like game on Neo. So the first is setting up a Neo private net. Like I mentioned earlier, we provide 2 ways to set up a Neo private net. The first one is, we call it Neo local. It runs on Docker. We can bring up a private net with one command. So we're running a command in Docker, and then it comes out with a Neo private net. And then also some wallet preset up. You got all the gas or Neo that you will need to deploy your smart contract and to test your smart contract. So this is a very simple and an easy way to start a Neo blockchain. And the second way is through the Neo client. This is more complicated but more flexible way to start a Neo private net. The way you do it is you download the Neo client and then setting up each Neo client as a node to doing the consensus process and then producing nodes. This is more flexible because you got more control over your private net. You can configure whatever you want with private. Let's say I want to produce a block in 1 second, and I want to produce a block in 10 seconds. Or I want to have a 4 consensus node, or I want to have more safe, have like 10 consensus node. So you got more control and more flexible for your private net, but it requires a little bit more blockchain knowledge. Unlike the first one, you can just go to the Docker and then, boom, you got your private net. So we will recommend the first way because it's easier. We want the dApp developers to spending more time to developing their dApp, not like spending half of their time figure out how to have a private net to test the applications. So we will recommend to use the first one, and then that's what I'm going to demo as well. So in order to run Neo local on your local machine, that you will need to have a Docker and a Git preset up, because that's what we're going to need to bring up this private net also with blockchain browsers. It supports multiple operation systems, so you can use with any computer you have. So those are the the Docker components it's going to bring up. The first 3 are the Docker components supporting the blockchain browser. And then this NeoPython and then NeoPrivateNet are actually Neo nodes. It just PrivateNet are running consensus. NeoPython is just the node that you can use to interact with the consensus nodes. The last one is the database to support the browser. How are we going to start Neo Local? It's pretty simple and straightforward. First, we go download this Neo Local code from the GitHub, and then we go into the Docker to run this docker compose op command. And then after a few seconds, you got your private net, and you got your private net with the browser support. Let me show you a simple demo. So this is the demo. First, we clone the Neo Local, and then we just start Neo Local with docker compose op with a few parameters. And then spring up all the Docker containers, support the private chain. And then it's up. If you go to the browser, you can see NeoScan is up. NeoScan is the blockchain explorer that will support all the data. So you can see the asset, block, transactions, and then it also has the wallet set up with all the Neo and the gas you can use to test your application. So starting a private net is simple with Neo. We just want developers to have something very quick so they can build on it. They can spend more time to actually playing with the application, playing the code to interact with Neo blockchain. Okay, now we have this private net set up. So once we have private net set up, the basic that we start to know about blockchain is through the Neo nodes, the Neo clients, and then to learn how to create a wallet, how to transfer funds, how to search blockchain data with Neo client. There are two ways you can do it. The first way is through the command line. For the developers has more experience with command line or prefer to use command line, we've got two tools they can use. The first one is Neo client, written in C#. The second is Neo Python, and obviously it's written in Python. For some developers don't like to use command, like to use the interface. We also have another tool, Neo GUI. So you can actually just go download the tool and then click some buttons to transfer a fund to create a wallet. I'm going to show how to actually use this command. This is the command that we provide for the command line tools. First is wallet command. You can actually go into Neo client to type in wallet help, and then it will show you all the wallet command we provide. The most basic way is creating a wallet, open an existing wallet, or transfer some funds through an open wallet. We also have more functions provided, like signing a transaction with wallet, and also import, export your private key or public keys. And then it's show command. It's also you do show help. You can see how to use a specific command. This show command is querying the basic information from blockchain, such as what is a block, what's in a block, and then what comes off a transaction as well. So it's all those basic information including or persist on blockchain. And then one of the important part that we're going to demo today is the smart contract command. So with Neo client, you can compile your smart contract. You can test your smart contract and then deploy it after testing everything is fun, and then also invoke your smart contract with the script hash after you compile your smart contract. So it provides all the functions you will need to develop a smart contract on Neo. Those are all the commands you can use with Neo clients to interact with blockchain, with the private chain you set up. So after the first two steps, that we have the basic knowledge of setting up a private chain to support your development, and then to use Neo clients to do a basic interaction. Now it's the time to look at how we write a smart contract and then what kind of support that we provide. Like I mentioned earlier, that we support multiple programming languages on the smart contract. C#, Python, Java, and Go are most mature languages that we support. So for developers who want to use those languages to write smart contract, we're supporting like IDE extensions. You can use your preferred IDE and then download a Neo smart contract extension, which comes with all the libraries you will need to write a smart contract. And we also provide the compiler will compile your smart contract into the AVM file, which is the file could be executed by Neo VM. And then, So that's all the tools, all the libraries, all the plugins that we provide for all these 4 languages. Any language you prefer, you can find all the tools you need to write a smart contract. You will find all your libraries that you will need to import into a smart contract. I'm going to also, I'm not going to go too detail on this one. So for our smart economy, we have all this standard, token standard, non-fungible or fungible token standard. And they are all on our website. You can go check out all the standard, what functions has to be provided for this non-fungible and fungible token. I'm going to go through this very simple demo about writing a C# smart contract on NEO. For any languages that we know, this hello world example. So that's what I'm going to do today. So first, we need a compiler to compile C# code into NEO AVM file. And then we can install this NEO contract plugin into our IDE. We're going to use Visual Studio 2017. And then we can write a smart contract, eventually deploy it and test it with NEO client. So there are some of the very important commands I want to show you is how we test and then deploy smart contract with NEO client. These 2 commands, I'm not sure if you guys can actually see it. It's a little bit small. So they are testing command and then also the deployment command. Some of the most important parameter we need to specify when we do a deployment or testing is a few of the parameters that we're telling NEO VM the specific character of this smart contract. The first is the file path. We can locate the AVM file. And then it's a storage. What storage means is we're telling the NEO VM that this smart contract needs saving data on blockchain. We need a storage in level DB. And then the second one is dynamic invoke. What does that mean is, let's assume we have a dApp which is quite complicated, and we have to implement our logic into multiple smart contracts. And they need to communicate with each other. They need to have a dynamic invoke between each other. So this is the parameter we're telling the VM that this contract has to be called dynamically by other contracts. And then the last one is payable. Payable means that when we call this smart contract, we can transfer some token into this contract. So which means the contract can hold the token temporarily until the owner of the smart contract abstract or transfer this token out. Those 3 are the most important parameters we're telling the VM the nature of this smart contract. We use true or false to tell the smart contract what we need. And then when we test the smart contract, we also need to tell the VM that this smart contract accepts parameters and what kind of parameters accept. So this param is describing the type of the parameters and also the return type, obviously. In the NEO VM, we have this code represent each kind of a data type. And then eventually we can invoke the smart contract, which is SC invoke, with the contract hash generated after you deploy your smart contract. Okay, let's look at the simple demo that I made. It's showing this whole process of creating a smart contract and deploying it to NEO private net. So first we can go to Visual Studio and then search this NEO smart contract plugin, and then we do search by NEO contract. And then you can download and install into your Visual Studio 2017. Once it's done, you can start creating your project and then got the option of NEO contract. It will come with all the C# libraries that you need to write your smart contract. Once it's done, it will download the libraries you need, put into the references, which is that one, NEO Smart Contract Frameworks, including all the libraries that you need. And I'm doing this hello world example. It says, welcome to NEO, and print out the parameters I accept from the the main function. And then I can build the smart contract. It's going to compile the C# file into the AVM file and ABI files that the blockchain uses. And then I can use the AVM file to deploy it to NEO private net. And then you go to your wallet, you open the wallet with enough gas because we need some fee to actually deploy a smart contract. That wallet has enough, it's like 10,000 yen gas. And then I can see SC, load and run. Load and run is the command that we test this AVM file. We pass some parameter and then test to see the result if it's correct or not. I'm putting NYC in there as my parameter and it's print out, welcome to NEO, New York City, which means it runs correct on blockchain. And then I can deploy it. It's SC deploy with the file, and then force. Force means no storage, no dynamic invoke, no payable. And then I put a little bit more information in there. Then it will be deployed into on blockchain. And then it costs 90 gas, the basic gas fees that we need. And then it's executed on chain. Now we can go to the blockchain browser and then see this transaction is generated. It costs 90 gas deploying a smart contract on your private net. And now I can actually search this contract, use the search function. You remember the information we provide, like name, description. We can search the smart contract by any of that. And then we need this script hash to actually invoke the transaction. It's like the ID for this smart contract. And then we do SC invoke with the script hash, and then I also use New York City. So this is actually calling the smart contract now because it's already included on blockchain. It costs a little bit of fee to actually execute it on NEO. And then it's also print out welcome to NEO, New York City. And then go to the browser and you got your new transaction.
Sure. For each smart contract, is there a single consensus for the network in general, or can you customize it for each smart contract if you want to have different types of consensus?
On NEO we only support one consensus, so you cannot change the consensus type.
And then also just a stupid question, the load is just for the peer that you're talking to, and the deploy is to populate across the entire network?
I'm sorry?
The load command you showed is to install it into the node that you're talking to, and the deploy is to instantiate it?
Load and run is you load this AVM file and you test it. It doesn't broadcast this transaction to the chain network. It only tests it locally and deploy. Yeah, deploy will actually send out the transaction to the whole consensus node. So this is the basic Hello World example of developing a smart contract. And for this process, you already see that we need Visual Studio 2017 to write the smart contract, and we will need to deploy and test it with one node, which requires multiple tools to support. And is there any better way we can do it? So we want to provide a simple experience. So, which means we want to provide a tool. One tool will support all this. We don't want developers to grab different tools to do different process of writing a smart contract. And that's some of the other options that you can do with your smart contract on NEO. Go ahead.
I don't know if this question is time. Okay, as you indicated, the invocation of the smart contract costs gas.
Yeah.
Now, when we develop dApps, one of the things we try to do is to abstract the user, in order to encourage user take-up, to abstract the user from paying any cost. So is there a way the smart contract can delegate that is certain, I don't even know if it's account-based or if it's certain, if you could delegate the cost to the owner of the smart contract rather than the user.
Okay. So on NEO, that we trying to promote and get more users to actually use the smart contract but not paying too much fee. So for every transaction, we provide 10 gas free transaction fee. So 10 gas means you can execute a large transaction. So basically means if you have a dApp and then your user executing the smart contract, 10 gas is quite enough for execute a complicated transaction.
Yeah, I was just trying to, but I don't want my user to.
The user don't really have to pay anything.
I want
Yeah.
to absorb as a developer, I want to absorb the cost myself.
Yep. So then when you write a smart contract, when you provide the method or function through a smart contract, it's very, if you don't want a user to pay anything, what I would recommend is don't implement the logic too complicate, to make sure that each transaction call could be executed under 10 gas.
Right.
And then, I think 10 gas is enough to run a lot of transactions.
Can I answer that question? I have lots of questions, but I promise just one more. So each, with a smart wallet, each transaction has to be signed. But in some types of environment, we want to have, the question is, does it support multi-sig?
Yeah, it does. It does support multi-signature. Okay, thank you for your question there. And then we come to these tools that we can develop smart contract online. So you go to the website, NEO Compiler and NEO Array, you can write your smart contract and then you can deploy and then compile, deploy into private net and testnet or mainnet. So it's one stop you can go and then finish your smart contract. And then also we have this NEO1. It's only supporting JavaScript, but it's a one-stop solution to develop your dApp, and not just the writing your smart contract. What does that mean is if I use NEO1, NEO1 can help me to bring up a private net, and then could help me to bring up a blockchain browser. And then I can also compile a smart contract reading in JavaScript with NEO1 and then deploy it to any network I specified. And then what's the best is you can easily integrate into a dApp with NEO1 because it's NEO1 compile your smart contract into ABI files that you can call into your smart contract very easily. And NeoCompiler. So the URL of that is neocompiler.io. Compiler, I'm sorry. Neocompiler.io. Yep. And so we have all these tools to help developers to simplify the experience. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we're moving towards. We don't want the developer to come to NEO and find it's too difficult to develop. And that's why we have all the tools to support smart contract. And then we come with this one-stop solution for developers. And we're also looking for an even better way to provide to simplify the experience. And that's what John is doing in Seattle. And he has something new to share with you guys about smart contract development.
Thank you, Longfei. So far, we've given you sort of a very broad brushstroke of all the assets, the tools we have in terms of the scope of the developer experience. And perhaps it gives you a sense that we are probably one of the unique platforms in our investments on tooling, libraries, and frameworks. Now, as we look back at what we've done, we know we can always do more, we can do better, and we want to. For example, a couple of things. If you look at, most recently we had a PR approved for a single node chain, which certainly significantly simplifies the testing and the development experience. Also, for example, if you look at the use of Docker, some developers like to use Docker in terms of their setup, and some certainly do not. We want to make it much more easier, much more simpler. And of course, if you've built smart contracts, debugging can be quite a strange experience, quite a painful experience sometimes. And we want to raise the bar in terms of being able to debug smart contracts and dApps. And so today we want to announce the preview of what we call the NEO Toolkit for VS and VS Code, and also NEO Express Node. I want to pause for maybe just a few seconds. If you look at the universe of developers worldwide, we believe there's about 20, maybe 21 million developers in the universe in terms of folks doing coding, not as necessarily as a hobbyist, but certainly for work or as a professional. And then I'm going to ask you, how many people today you think are building smart contracts or dApps? Any guesses of that 21 million?
10K.
10K? That's a good guess. Well, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, basically, we believe this probably, again, being very generous, maybe 100,000, give or take a few. And so as we look at this, this is the tip of the iceberg. We are a very uniquely developer-centric platform. Da Hongfei's vision is, let's be the most developer-friendly. And so to that extent, we believe that tools such as this can significantly bring in more developers across the world to try NEO, to build apps on NEO, and to certainly deploy dApps. So more detail. The toolkit, like I said, in terms of being able to code, compile, certainly debug, with a good experience for the developer, and also simplify in terms of setting up the chain via both command line as well as VS and VS Code extensions. This is the tooling side of it. On the flip side, we have announcing what we call NEO Express. The NEO Express node, again, with the recent PR, we can do a single node chain essentially. But also, we want to do more. We want to make it easy for the developer who is testing on his or her Mac or PC and say, okay, let's have symmetry. You're testing, you're building this app on your Mac or your PC. Can we have symmetry across being able to go from that to the testnet and possibly even a managed NEO node running on a major cloud platform? And so we are striving for this simplicity and this symmetry with the NEO Express node. Again, sometime in the fall, we will essentially preview this toolkit as well as the Express node. This is more of I guess you could say, a pre-release announcement of what's coming up front. I'm going to take a couple of minutes just to give you a flavor. If I can get this thing running, there we go. Okay, so just to give you a flavor in terms of what we're striving in a couple of minutes, basically. I'm going to install NEO Dev, which is the client side, as well as, I know the font is a little bit small, I apologize. Maybe we should have made it a little bigger. And then NEO Express, which is essentially the NEO Express node. What we will do very shortly is set up at this point, we'll set up a single node chain, and then I will use PowerShell to basically launch this chain very shortly. So far, we have a single node chain. We've launched the chain locally on your PC at this point. It's running. We can configure the time in terms of seconds, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, as much as you want to give you the flexibility. So now we have the chain running. I'm going to go back in and create a demo wallet. Let's call it Demo 1. We have the demo wallet. I'm going to move all the Genesis over to the demo wallet, obviously, for the test purposes. Once we move all the Genesis over, I can then look at the account. So let's view the Demo 1, and you can see the assets, obviously. We've done the moving of the Genesis. And then once we've done that, let's look at the gas. How much gas do we have at this point, and how much can we claim to do our test? It's fairly small. I will now install into VS, into the smart contract. It's a fairly simple smart contract. You give in a Boolean, I get back the opposite. Give in true, get false, and vice versa. Also see, we have used metadata over there to make it simpler by adding more attributes on the assembly, and thereby minimize the amount of time you spend in terms of the command line parameters. I will install the compiler, go build the smart contract. Now it compiles fine because we have the compiler. Let's go back in. Let's import the contract. So use NEO Dev, import the contract in. Done that. Let's go back and see the gas. How much gas do we have now? Probably a little more, yes, certainly a little bit more. Now we need to go, obviously, transfer to have the transaction to claim the gas. So I'm doing a transfer. That was good so far. We'll then claim the gas. So we're good to go. At this point, I should be able to execute the transaction. Let's go look at the Demo 1 account again. Very good. We have the gas we need. Then I will deploy the simple smart contract. And then let's invoke it. Let's pass in false, and we should get back true. Yep, there we go. So in about 2.5 minutes or so, a very simplified walkthrough. And again, keeping our goal in mind of saying, let's make it simple, even simpler. We have great tools. We have a great spectrum in terms of assets across languages. But we are looking to raise the bar even more. So certainly a few key things in terms of metadata, in terms of debugging support, which I know is a critical problem right now, being able to have symmetry of the node across both local as well as eventually testnet and so on. And lastly, to be able to help developers in a matter of minutes quickly set up essentially what would be a test or a POC or a pilot. And again, would love your feedback. Certainly in the August timeframe, in the fall here in the US, we will be launching the pre-release. So we'd love to see you play with it and give us more feedback as well. Yes, sir. You're smiling. It's a good thing. I hope.
No, I'm smiling because it's all good to have developer support. For example, my company has developed a couple of financial dApps, or decentralized dApps.
Very good.
Using things like Ethereum, EOS, is actually a multi-chain EOS and Hashgraph. And one of the key criteria for us that you haven't mentioned there, I mean, as a developer, it's good to have all these developer tools, and as you rightly said,
yes,
debugging support is very scarce right now. But one of the things that our clients are looking for, things like scalability and speed. So it'd be interesting if you could comment on things like TPS.
Certainly. Certainly, absolutely. Like Hong Fei said, we have a very unique approach to consensus, which gives us great advantages in terms of scale and speed and certainly in the number of transactions. In this particular slides, we focus more on the developer experience, so we did not put the slides in terms of numbers, but certainly very happy to follow up after the talk and walk you through what we can do in terms of scale. We believe we are, again, very uniquely capable in terms of handling the smart economy, real-world applications. So very good question. Hold on. I'll come back to you right after the session. Never mind. So that was just a quick demo. I'm going to give it back to Long Fei, and then I think we are mostly on time, so back to you. Thank you.
So we haven't done yet, and we still have a. So I just want to bring you guys back to what we have done so far. We have a private net, and then we use NEO client, and then we have smart contract. But we're not being there yet. We haven't have an application be able to run to communicate with like communicate from dApp to NEO blockchain. So that's the last part, is how to interact from the dApp to NEO blockchain. And there are two tools that I mentioned earlier, is wallet extension, and then another one is through NEO SDK. I'm gonna go a little bit faster because I don't have enough time. The first one is NEO SDK, which support multiple languages like I mentioned earlier. And then they all support a main chain, a mainnet, testnet, and a private net. So you can develop and test on your private net and then start running on testnet eventually when it's stable enough, move into a mainnet. And then it's come with the functionality as a wallet and a smart contract support, and also with the very comprehensive documents with examples to walk you through the whole process of using NEO SDK. And then for each function, you can see an example. And then next one is the wallet extension. Like I mentioned, we have the API, which is the API standard for the dApp to communicate with a wallet extension. All the wallet extension on NEO has to follow this dAPI, so the dApp have the unified way to communicate with multiple wallet. So it's very compatible. It's very easy to switch from one wallet to another. And then currently we have 3 wallet extensions. Neoline, Timo, and O3, they all support the API, so you can switch to any wallet very easily from your dApp. So from using those 3 wallet extensions, you call from the API. First, you need to get authorization for the wallet to connect from the dApp. And then when you're sending a transaction, when you're sending an asset, you need authorization. And when you invoke a smart contract, you need authorization, which basically handling the signing process of broadcast process to wallet extension. And I mentioned the NEO1 earlier, which is quite good tool in NEO ecosystem. It's a one-stop solution. You can create a dApp. And I want to use this to bring a demo to showcase how we develop a dApp with NEO1, the whole process. The example I'm using is smart donation. It's like FoundMe in our, I'm pretty sure you guys probably know FoundMe. So this is the simple showcase case like that. And imagine that we have a dApp with 2 functions. One is ICO. ICO means that I send NEO to you, and I got some NEP5 token back. And then also the donation function. And correspondingly, we have 2 smart contracts deployed on NEO blockchain. One is the which is an NEP5 token, and then the smart donation contract, which is processing the donation and then contributions. So we have a donor. Do ICO through the ICO function. I send 10 NEO, and then I call a smart contract, got 1 million, 1 token back. And then the beneficiary can set up a donation. And then eventually it will be recorded on blockchain as well. And then donor can actually donate token towards this donation. Eventually the beneficiary can collect the donation. And after you guys have a brief idea about what we're demonstrating and what we're building, and here's what we actually do it. So first we download this demo code, and then we can open the demo code here, and then run NEO1 build. NEO1 build, we download all this node module into node module folder, which is NEO1. And then you can write your smart contract into this one folder. It's in one smart contract. And then there are two smart contracts we're reading here. One is this token standard, the token, and then it's including all the functions, all the libraries that you need, and then all the basic information for a token, an NEP5 token, like name, symbol, and the decimals, total supplies. Also, all the functions that we need to provide following the NEP5 token standard, such as transfer, balance off, getting the name of it, and then the most important is mining the token. Then the next one is the smart donation transaction. It's importing the smart contract from the library, a JavaScript library, and then providing the contribution information and then donation information. Those information will be recorded on blockchain. So through the map storage, you can tell that it's going to be recorded on blockchain. And then also have all these functions as setting up a donation, contribute towards the donation. Once I finish these two smart contracts, I put into one smart contract folder. I can start building this private net through NEO1.build. This command will bring up a private net for you, and then compile all your smart contracts, and then deploy it into this private net. And it will generate the ABI files that you can actually call from your application in that generated folder. And you got your ABI files. You got your ABI files here. Describes all the functions, all the methods that you can call from the smart contract. And then SRC file is where you write your smart contract. Is where you write the applications. So you write all your code in source folder, and then you can call smart contract from that generated folder. And because the code is already written, so I'm going to start this application. And the first is the ICO page. You can send NEO to this wallet and then get your token. We have some wallet preset up, and I'm going to choose one wallet to do that. And once I send, it will generate the transaction, and then we can also see that transaction from the blockchain browser. And then I got my token back, and I spent 100 NEO. So the function which is written is, into the source folder, this container is where I wrote my dApp. And then the ICO container is where I wrote my logic is. So I import this one smart contract into my dApp, which is generated from the smart contract. And then there's a function that when I click the send button, it's going to activate this one action. And then eventually what's calling the smart contract is through the one.mine token is where it's getting generated from the smart contract. So I can easily call it from the ABI files it's generated. And then after I have enough token 1, I can do donation now. Also, I need to set up a donation. Choose one wallet, and I picked Echo, I guess. And I need to set up a donation. What I says is, please fund me. I want to go to 2019 consensus. So that's what I said. And I'm going to set up a donation. Once I click set up and update, it will be recorded on blockchain. And then also calling the code that I wrote for the app. And then in the smart donation container, it has set up container. Also import all the smart contract generated from the contract I wrote. And once I click the setup button, it will call the smart donation contract.setup contract function. Those are the functions I wrote in the smart contract. And this will actually calling the contract on my private net. And now a donor can go to donate towards any donations. And I switch back to my master wallet, because the master wallet which did ICO has enough token 1 to contribute. So I got like 10 million tokens, and I can donate towards any donation if I feel generous. And then Echo has a donation, which we did set up earlier, found me to go to 2019 consensus. And I said, okay, good luck. I donate 5,000 tokens towards his donation. This will generate a transaction as well, and then record it on blockchain. And then it's the same logic as we showed earlier that, okay, here's actually showing the transaction, sending from one wallet to another. It's the same in the dApp. You import the smart contract which was generated from NEO1, and then you implement your logic when some button is clicked. You are going to call that smart contract specific functions. Here is smart contract in contribute, and it's going to transfer token from one NEP5 token. And then eventually, the donor can collect. The beneficiary can collect the token that was contributed towards him. So this tool is demonstrating the whole process of creating a dApp. So with NEO1, you can have your private net set up. You can have your browser, blockchain browser set up with one command, and you can write your smart contract, and then it will generate it. It will compile and then generate files that you will need in your dApp. And it has all the support from dApp, so you can create your dApp and then interact with Neo blockchain from the generated smart contracts. I think that's one of the tools that we're really excited about, and that we really want the community to start using it because it's pretty convenient, and it has very powerful functions towards building a smart contract. All right, I think that's basically cover all the presentation today, and thank you guys for listening. And if you feel interested, please welcome to NEO.org page and look at our developer page. You'll get all the information. And then we also have some Neo t-shirt here. This t-shirt is a little bit more interesting. We want people to actually start knowing blockchain, knowing how to use wallet. So in that t-shirt, there's a QR code, which is the private key. And then you can start playing with the private key and open a wallet and can get a token with each t-shirt. So if you feel interested, you can go grab one. Thank you.
I'd like to ask, any questions?
No.
Can you talk about where, who's using NEO in terms of?
I'm sorry?
Who's using NEO in terms of like its implementation, adoption by corporates or?
Oh, so unlike Hyperledger or Quarter, NEO is not focusing on the big corporations there. We are a blockchain. We are very welcome all the individual developers, project, games to build on NEO. So we have a dApp page, list all the dApps that are creating or is already created on NEO. They are including like stable coins, and then Oracle, and then all the community project, and then also games. They all list on our dApp page.
I had a question. You mentioned interact with the blockchain. Interact with. Is this not the same model where the dApp is actually deployed to the blockchain?
I think, yeah.
So like in Ethereum, the dApp, you put the dApp on the blockchain. This is not the case, or what?
For the dApp that we're demonstrating here, we're only putting the smart contract on blockchain.
Okay,
All
smart
the
contract.
dApp are still running out.
Okay, smart contracts on the blockchain.
Yep.
And Is there a way to upgrade deployed smart contracts?
Right, yeah.
It is upgradable?
Yeah, it's upgradable, and then it's also migratable. So you can upgrade your smart contract, but in your old smart contract and new smart contract, you have to override this function for migration and updating.
Okay, so you have to design it in the first
Yeah,
place to be
yeah.
migratable. Okay.
So you have to make sure that you design your smart contract to be upgradable.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
You talked about
the dynamic invocation of the
Mm-hmm.
smart contract. So it's possible to actually develop an application that spans through for smart contracts, for example.
Yeah.
In that kind of scenario, it's also possible. First of all, one question: is there any time limit or finality in the execution of a transaction? Is there a time limit? Number two, the question I was trying to ask is that in that scenario, it's possible to actually implement a transaction that will be implemented that will be called dynamically over several smart contracts, but to the blockchain, it is, and in terms of the economics, it's seen as a single transaction. Is that possible? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Where you actually call several transactions that spans multiple smart contracts,
Mm-hmm.
but in a way, from the blockchain point of view, it is a single transaction. Is NEO able to say it like that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for your first question is, let's say if I dynamic invoke, will be affected by the one block finality, right? So for the dynamic invoke that will generate maybe one transaction or maybe multiple transactions, but all the transactions will actually have a sequence that we have to make sure the first transaction is executed and then we'll execute the second one. Otherwise, the state will be like messed up, and then you will be failing on the validations. So and then also NEO we set up at the 15-second block time. So 15-second block time will be good enough to include all this transaction into one block. I hope it's a covered question.
So, I mean, in terms of the, so it is possible, for example, for you to have a nested call, which is
Mm-hmm.
and that nested call could span multiple smart contracts.
Mm-hmm.
But with a blockchain, it's a single transaction,
Mm-hmm.
a single transaction ID.
Yeah, it is single
Is that
transaction
the same
ID.
In NEO?
Yeah.
From other blockchain IDs?
Yes. Because you're sending one transaction to the blockchain, and then it's invoking.
Several
Yes,
other-
it's one transaction.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, question, what happens to all the dApps if you're launching NEO 3.0?
So we're launching NEO 3.0. You asked questions because we're going to have a NEP5 token for NEO and gas. We are abandoning the UTXO model. So, but we will take care of all the migrations from the old UTXO model to the NEO NEP5 model. So it doesn't have too much impact on the apps. So we will take care of the migration and all the transfer. But don't worry about that. All right. Okay.
On NEO, there was another session which was about cloud storage, and I saw a new feature there called NEO-FS file sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same?
No, so NEO-FS and NEO-ID are more on the infrastructure level.
Yes.
So we are supporting the applications or the project one building on NEO. So we have like layer 1, which is NEO blockchain, and then the infrastructure building on layer 1. And then also all the developer tools to supporting the applications level.
And NEO Cloud Storage is another, let's say, business division of NEO.
Yeah.
Let's say you are global development,
Mm-hmm.
so you have cloud storage people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it
So
something that you offer the ability for a dApp kind of developer to build on top, not NEO, which are
So that's one of our developer communities, building a NEO-FS on cloud. So NGD is more focused on the strategy, fulfilling the strategy of a NEO. And then we also have a lot of the developer communities contribute towards NEO. NEO-FS is one of example, and NEO-ID is. And then the compilers that I'm showing, the online smart contract implementation, they're all provided by the developer communities.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you very much for your question.